The council chamber floated in the darkness of space, a massive station that had witnessed the rise and fall of countless civilizations. Inside its main hall, representatives from 73 different alien species sat in their designated sections. Some breathed oxygen like humans, others required special environmental suits. A few existed as energy patterns contained within crystalline structures, but all of them were united in one thing. They followed the rules of the Galactic Council. Ambassador Hyun stood at the speaker's platform in the center of the chamber. He wore a simple gray suit, nothing fancy or decorated. His black hair was neatly combed, and his face showed no emotion as he waited. Around him, the aliens whispered to each other in languages that sounded like music, grinding rocks or electronic beeps. His translator earpiece converted everything into Korean. Then his neural implant fed him the English translations he needed. The High Arbiter Velmoth rose from his elevated seat. He was a Krallian, tall and covered in dark blue scales that reflected the chamber's lights. His four eyes blinked in sequence as he looked down at the human ambassador. When he spoke, his voice boomed through the chamber's speakers. "The assessment of Earth has been completed," Velmoth announced. "Humanity has been measured, catalogued, and evaluated according to the ancient protocols. As a newly inducted species into our galactic community, you have been granted the privilege of membership. But with privilege comes responsibility." Hyun listened carefully. He had expected this moment for weeks. Earth's diplomats had warned him that this meeting would determine humanity's future among the stars. Velmoth continued, "Humanity will provide tribute to the Galactic Council. This tribute will consist of the following: 20% of all agricultural production from Earth and its colonies, 15% of all refined metals and rare Earth elements, and 10% of your population, who will serve as laborers in the development of outer colony worlds." A murmur spread through the chamber. Some aliens nodded their approval. Others made gestures that Hyun's cultural database identified as signs of satisfaction. This was normal. This was how things had always been done. "These terms are non-negotiable," Velmoth said. "Every species in this chamber has paid such tribute. It is the price of galactic citizenship. It is how we maintain order and prosperity across the stars. Your tribute collectors will arrive at Earth in 6 standard cycles. That gives you approximately 42 of your Earth days to prepare the first shipment." Hyun remained standing silently. His hands rested calmly at his sides. Inside, his mind was racing, but his diplomatic training kept his face neutral. Velmoth looked directly at him. "Does humanity understand these terms?" Hyun activated his own speaking device. His voice was clear and steady. "I understand the terms you have presented, High Arbiter. However, I must request a recess of 24 hours to consult with my government. A decision of this magnitude requires proper consideration and authorization from Earth's leadership." Several aliens made sounds that the translator identified as laughter. One representative, a creature that looked like a floating jellyfish, spoke up. "They always ask for time. They always believe they can negotiate. It is almost endearing." Velmoth raised one of his forearms. "Your request is granted, Ambassador Hyun. You have 24 hours. Return here at this exact time tomorrow with humanity's acknowledgement of these terms. Do not be late." Hyun bowed slightly, a gesture of respect that meant nothing to most of the aliens present but everything to him. He turned and walked out of the chamber, his footsteps echoing on the metal floor. Once outside, Hyun made his way through the station's corridors to the human diplomatic section. It was a small area, just 3 rooms that Earth had been allocated. Inside, his staff was already monitoring the news feeds from various alien networks. The story of Earth's tribute assessment was spreading quickly across the galaxy. "They're already celebrating," said Minho, Hyun's chief of staff. He pointed to a screen showing Krallian news. "They're calling it another successful integration." Hyun sat down at his desk and activated the quantum communication link to Earth. The connection took a moment to establish, spanning the vast distance between the council station and home. When the screen flickered to life, he saw the faces of Earth's leaders appearing one by one in a secure video conference. "They've made their demand," Hyun said simply. He transmitted the full details of Velmoth's announcement. The silence that followed was heavy. Then the president of the United Earth government spoke. 20% of our food, 15% of our metals, 10% of our people." "Yes," Hyun confirmed. "That's over 800 million human beings," someone else said. "I know." The president leaned forward. What happens if we refuse? Hyun had anticipated this question. According to the galactic laws, refusal results in expulsion from the council. Trade embargoes, possibly military enforcement. Every species that has ever refused tribute has eventually been forced to comply. How many have refused? Another leader asked. Based on my research here, only 4 species in the last 3,000 years. All of them eventually accepted the terms after facing economic collapse or military pressure. The discussion that followed lasted for hours. Hyun listened as Earth's leaders debated, argued, and analyzed every possible angle. He provided information when asked, clarification when needed, but mostly he just listened. Representatives from every nation on Earth joined the conversation. African leaders spoke about their own history of being exploited. Asian leaders discussed sovereignty and independence. European leaders analyzed the legal frameworks. American leaders talked about freedom and self-determination. South American leaders brought up economic impacts, but gradually something remarkable happened. Despite all their differences, despite all their usual disagreements, the leaders of Earth began to reach a consensus. The debate became less heated. The tone shifted from argument to determination. Finally, after nearly 18 hours of continuous discussion, the president spoke again. Ambassador Hyun, humanity has made its decision. We are transmitting our official response to you now. You will deliver it to the Galactic Council exactly as written. Hyun received the transmission and read it carefully. Then he read it again. He looked up at the screen, at all those faces looking back at him. Are you absolutely certain? He asked quietly. The president nodded. We are completely certain. This is humanity's answer. Hyun closed his eyes for a moment, then opened them. I understand. I will deliver our response tomorrow as scheduled. After the communication ended, Minho came into the office. What did they decide? Hyun handed him the tablet with Earth's response. Minho read it and his eyes went wide. They're serious about this? Minho whispered. Completely serious. The council is going to lose their minds. Hyun allowed himself a small smile. I know. Get some rest, Minho. Tomorrow is going to be a very interesting day. As the station's lights dimmed to simulate night, Hyun sat alone in his office, looking out the viewport at the stars. Somewhere out there was Earth, small and blue and beautiful. And tomorrow, that small blue world was going to shake the foundations of galactic civilization with the simplest word humanity had ever learned to say. Ambassador Hyun walked back into the council chamber exactly 24 hours after he had left. The massive hall was filled again with representatives from all the member species. Most of them barely looked at him as he approached the speaker's platform. This was routine for them. They had seen this scene play out dozens of times before with other species. High Arbiter Velmoth sat on his elevated throne, looking bored. He gestured with one of his scaled arms for Hyun to approach. Ambassador, you have returned as promised. I trust your government has prepared Earth's acknowledgement of the tribute terms. Hyun stepped up to the platform and activated his speaking device. The translation systems kicked in, ready to broadcast his words across all 73 linguistic formats used in the chamber. He stood straight, his hands at his sides, and looked directly at Velmoth. High Arbiter, I am authorized to deliver humanity's official response to your tribute demand. Proceed, Velmoth said, waving his hand dismissively. Hyun took a breath and spoke one clear word. No. For 3 full seconds, nothing happened. The translation systems processed the word, checking for context, looking for additional meaning, searching for qualifiers or conditions. But there were none. Just that single word, no. The chamber fell completely silent. It was the kind of silence that felt heavy, like the moment before a storm breaks. Aliens who had been chatting with their neighbors stopped mid-conversation. Representatives who had been reviewing documents on their data tablets looked up. Even the automated system seemed to pause, as if they too were confused by what they had just heard. Velmoth's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, faster than before. I apologize, Ambassador. The translation system must have malfunctioned. Please repeat your government's response. The translation was correct, Hyun said calmly. Humanity's answer to your tribute demand is no. We decline. We will not comply with these terms. The silence shattered like glass. Suddenly, the entire chamber erupted into chaos. Representatives jumped from their seats. shouting in their native languages. Some aliens made sounds of shock and disbelief. Others roared in anger. A few simply sat frozen, unable to process what they had just witnessed. A Viralian representative, whose species resembled a giant mantis, stood and clicked his mandibles rapidly. "This is impossible. No species refuses the tribute. It is galactic law," a Threnny delegate floating in her water-filled containment sphere added. "We all paid. Every single species in this chamber paid tribute when we joined. It is the foundation of our civilization." Velmoth slammed his fist on his throne's armrest, and the sound boomed through the chamber's speakers. Silence. The noise gradually died down. Aliens settled back into their seats, but the chamber buzzed with angry muttering and shocked whispers. Velmoth stood, his full height towering over the assembly. He looked down at Hyun with all four eyes fixed on the human. "Ambassador Hyun, perhaps you do not understand the gravity of what you are saying. Let me be very clear. Refusal of tribute is not an option. It has never been an option. Every species that has attempted to refuse has been brought into compliance. Do you understand what you are saying?" "I understand completely," Hyun replied, his voice steady. "I am delivering my government's official position. Earth will not provide 20% of our agriculture, 15% of our metals, or 10% of our population. We will not comply with your tribute system." Another Kralian representative younger than Velmoth stood up. "Then you choose economic isolation. We will cut off all trade with your system." Hyun nodded. "That is your right. You will be expelled from the council," another alien shouted. "We understand that consequence," Hyun said. Velmoth's scales seemed to darken, a sign his staff had told Hyun indicated extreme anger in Kralians. "You understand nothing. Your species is barely 200 years into space travel. You have 67 colony worlds and mining stations. You rely on council trade routes for 30% of your advanced technology. You think you can survive alone?" "We are willing to find out," Hyun answered. An elder representative from the Felian consensus, one of the oldest species in the council, spoke in a voice that sounded like wind chimes. "Young human, we have been part of this council for over 8,000 years. We paid our tribute. We endured the hardship. It made us stronger. It integrated us into the greater galactic community. Why do you think you are special? Why do you believe you can refuse what every other species has accepted?" Hyun turned to face the Felian. "With respect, Elder, I am not here to debate whether the tribute system is fair or just. I am here to deliver my government's decision. Humanity declines." Velmoth raised his arms and the chamber fell silent again. When he spoke, his voice was cold and formal. "Very well. Since humanity refuses to accept the obligations of galactic citizenship, we have no choice but to invoke enforcement protocols. Ambassador Hyun, your species is hereby given one final opportunity to reconsider. You have 6 standard cycles, 42 Earth days, to reverse this decision. If you do not, the Council will authorize a tribute enforcement fleet to travel to your system and ensure compliance." "What does enforcement mean?" Hyun asked, though he already knew the answer. "It means," Velmoth said slowly, "that a military fleet will arrive at Earth. They will blockade your world. They will seize the required tribute by force if necessary. They will remain in your system until Earth complies with galactic law. Resistance will be met with appropriate measures." Hyun looked around the chamber at all the alien faces watching him. Some looked angry. Others looked sad. A few seemed almost sympathetic. But none of them looked like they thought humanity had any chance of succeeding in this refusal. "I understand the consequences you have outlined," Hyun said. "I will transmit your response to my government. But I do not believe their answer will change." "Then your species is even more foolish than I thought," Velmoth said. He gestured toward the exit. "You are dismissed, Ambassador. Use your remaining time wisely. Perhaps when you see our enforcement fleet approaching your planet, your leaders will develop some wisdom." Hyun gathered his data tablet and prepared to leave. But before he reached the exit, he turned back one final time to address the chamber. Every alien representative watched him, waiting to see what this strange human would say. "High Arbiter, members of the Council," Hyun said clearly, "my species has a long history on our planet. We have fought thousands of wars. We have built and destroyed countless empires. We have made many mistakes and learned many painful lessons. But one thing we have learned above all else is this. When someone demands that you surrender your freedom in exchange for protection, They are not offering protection. They are offering servitude. He paused, letting his words be translated and processed. Humanity's answer is no. Our answer will remain no, and we are prepared to accept whatever consequences follow from that answer. Good day. With that, Ambassador Hyun walked out of the council chamber. Behind him, the hall erupted into noise again, but he did not look back. He walked through the corridors of the station, past confused and angry alien faces, back to the small human diplomatic section. Minho was waiting for him. How bad was it? About as bad as expected, Hyun said. He sat down heavily in his chair. They're sending an enforcement fleet. We have 42 days. 42 days until Earth goes to war with the Galactic Council, Minho said quietly. Yes. Hyun activated the communication link to Earth. I need to report what happened, and then we need to start packing. Something tells me we're not going to be welcome at this station much longer. As he waited for the connection to establish, Hyun looked out the viewport at the stars again. Somewhere out there, decisions were being made that would change everything. Ships were being prepared, weapons were being loaded, and Earth was getting ready to prove that one word, no, could be worth fighting for. Commander Thal stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Pride of Kralia, and watched as his fleet assembled in formation. 200 warships, each one powerful enough to level a city from orbit. It was an impressive sight, even for someone who had seen countless military operations in his 40 years of service. Status report, Thal ordered. His second officer, a younger Kralian named Vorsk, checked the tactical displays. All ships have reported ready, Commander. Weapon systems are armed and operational. Shields are at full capacity. The fleet is ready to depart for the human system. Thal nodded with satisfaction. This would be his 17th enforcement operation. He had brought compliance to 16 other species who had initially refused tribute. The pattern was always the same: a show of overwhelming force, a brief period of resistance, and then inevitable surrender. The humans would be no different. The Council expects this to be resolved quickly, said Councillor Marvek, a political observer who had been assigned to accompany the fleet. The humans have embarrassed the High Arbiter. He wants them brought to heel swiftly. It will be swift, Thal assured him. According to our intelligence, humanity has approximately 340 vessels in their entire fleet. Most of them are converted cargo ships with basic weapons. They have no experience with real military combat. Their technology is at least 2 centuries behind ours. Vorsk pulled up a holographic display showing Earth's solar system. Their defensive positions are primitive. A few orbital platforms, some weapons on their moon. Nothing that our shields cannot handle. Have they made any aggressive moves since the ambassador delivered their refusal? Thal asked. No, Commander. They appear to be going about their normal business. Some ships have moved to defensive positions around Earth, but that's expected. Thal allowed himself a slight smile. They still think they can negotiate. They think we will arrive and simply talk. They do not understand that talking time is over. He turned to Vorsk. Signal the fleet. We depart immediately. Course set for Earth, maximum speed. The journey would take 40 days. 40 days during which Thal reviewed every detail of human capabilities. He studied their ship designs, their weapons technology, their military doctrine. Everything confirmed what he already knew. Humanity was no match for the Kralian fleet. Meanwhile, in Earth's solar system, preparations of a very different nature were underway. Admiral Jiwan stood in the command center of the orbital defense station above Earth. Dozens of officers worked at their stations, coordinating the largest military operation in human history. Update on the Kralian fleet? Jiwan asked. Captain Minji, head of reconnaissance, brought up a long-range scan. Still on course, Admiral. They're maintaining standard formation. No deviations. They'll arrive at the edge of our system in approximately 38 hours. And they still don't know we've been watching them? Minji smiled slightly. No, ma'am. Our stealth ships have been tracking them since they left Council space. They have no idea we're monitoring their every move. Their sensor technology is actually quite outdated. Juan studied the tactical display. The Kralian fleet was large and powerful, but it was also predictable. They were using formations that were centuries old, tactics that had worked against species who fought by galactic rules, but humanity had never been good at following rules. All ships report status, Juan ordered. Across the solar system, responses came in. Every vessel in Earth's fleet had been repositioned over the past 6 weeks. Some hid behind asteroids, Others used the gas giant's magnetic fields to mask their signatures. A few drifted in the outer system, their engines cold and silent, appearing as nothing more than debris on any sensor scan. Commander Taewon, in charge of the lunar defense installations, reported next. All railguns are loaded and calibrated. We have firing solutions prepared for every likely approach vector. Magazines are full. We can maintain sustained fire for 72 hours before requiring resupply. Excellent, Ji-won said. She pulled up the defensive plan that had been developed by Earth's top military strategists. It was based on a simple principle. Make the enemy think they know where you are, then hit them from where they don't expect. On the bridge of the Pride of Kralia, Commander Thal was reviewing the final approach plans when his sensor officer called out. Commander, we are entering the outer edge of the human system. Time to Earth orbit 6 hours. Any sign of the human fleet? Limited contacts, Commander. We're detecting approximately 40 vessels in orbit around Earth. They appear to be maintaining a defensive perimeter. Thal nodded. Only 40? Where are the rest of their ships? Unknown, Commander. They may be stationed at their colony worlds or out of sensor range. It doesn't matter, Thal said. 40 ships against 200. This will be over before it begins. He activated the fleet communication system. All vessels prepare for combat operations. Shields to maximum. Weapons armed. We will approach Earth directly and demand immediate surrender. If they refuse, we will disable their orbital platforms and demonstrate our superiority. As the Kralian fleet crossed into the asteroid belt, Thal transmitted the standard enforcement message toward Earth. This is Commander Thal of the Galactic Council Enforcement Fleet. We are authorized to collect tribute as specified by Council decree. Power down your weapons and prepare to receive our tribute collectors. Resistance will be met with force. In the orbital command center, Admiral Ji-won received the message. She looked at her officers and then activated her response channel. This is Admiral Ji-won of the United Earth Defense Force. You have entered sovereign human territory without permission. This is your only warning. Turn your fleet around and leave our system immediately. On the Pride of Kralia's bridge, several Kralian officers made sounds that translated roughly as laughter. Counselor Marvek shook his head. They actually believe they can order us to leave. The arrogance is remarkable. Thal was not laughing. Something about the human admiral's tone bothered him. She had not sounded frightened or desperate. She had sounded confident. Sensor officer, run another deep scan. I want to know where every human ship is located. Scanning now, Commander. After a moment, the officer's voice changed. Sir, I'm picking up multiple new contacts. They're appearing all around us. How did they? The tactical display suddenly lit up with red markers. Human ships were emerging from behind asteroids, powering up systems that had been running silent. Within seconds, the Kralian fleet found itself surrounded. Battle stations, Thal shouted. All ships defensive formation beta. But the human ships were already moving. They were fast, much faster than the intelligence reports had suggested. And they were not using the standard attack patterns that the Kralians expected. Captain Minji, aboard the human stealth vessel Shadowrunner, watched the Kralian fleet try to reorganize. All units weapons free. Execute Attack Plan Delta. Focus fire on their command ships. What happened next would be discussed in military academies for generations. The human ships did not engage in traditional space combat. They did not try to match shield strength or energy weapons. Instead, they used tactics that the Galactic Council considered primitive and barbaric. Kinetic kill vehicles, simple masses of tungsten accelerated to incredible speeds, slammed into Kralian shields. The shields, designed to deflect energy weapons, offered almost no protection against solid objects moving at relativistic velocities. Hull plating that could withstand laser fire crumpled like paper. Nuclear missiles, banned in galactic warfare for centuries as being too dangerous and unpredictable, streaked through space in swarms. The Kralian point defense systems, optimized for intercepting energy weapons, could not handle the sheer number of physical projectiles. Explosions bloomed across the fleet. From the lunar surface, railguns fired. The rounds took several minutes to cross the distance, but when they arrived, they punched through multiple ships in a single shot. The Kralians had never encountered weapons that could fire from planetary surfaces with such accuracy. Commander Thal watched his fleet being torn apart and finally understood the terrible truth. The humans had not refused tribute out of ignorance or pride. They had refused because they could. Earth had been preparing for this fight since before they knew the Galactic Council existed. Every weapon, every tactic, every ship design had been created with one purpose: winning wars. All ships retreat. Thal ordered. Fall back to Rally Point Gamma. But there was no Rally Point Gamma. The humans had studied the Krallian tactical doctrine. They knew exactly where the fleet would try to regroup. And they were already there waiting. The battle had been raging for 6 hours. Commander Thal's flagship, the Pride of Krallia, shook as another human missile salvo struck its shields. Warning lights flashed across the bridge and the air filled with the acrid smell of burning electronics. Shield strength at 40%. Vorsk shouted over the alarms. We cannot sustain much more of this. Thal stared at the tactical display in disbelief. Of the 200 warships that had confidently entered Earth's system, less than 100 remained operational. The rest were either destroyed, disabled, or drifting in space with critical damage, and the human fleet showed no signs of slowing down. How many ships have we destroyed? Thal demanded. 11 confirmed kills, the weapons officer reported. Another 4 heavily damaged. 11. They had destroyed 11 human vessels while losing over 100 of their own. It was impossible. It defied everything Thal knew about warfare. Captain Minji watched the battle from her position aboard the Shadow Runner. Her reconnaissance data had given the human fleet a critical advantage. She knew where every Krallian ship would move before they moved there. She knew their weak points, their formation patterns, their standard responses to every tactical situation. Sir, the Krallian command ship is trying to break away toward the outer system, her tactical officer reported. Pursuit Group 3, you have the command ship, Minji transmitted. Do not let it escape. All other units continue your assigned targets. Aboard the Pride of Krallia, Thal realized they were being herded. Every escape route he tried was blocked. Every tactical maneuver was anticipated. It was as if the humans could read his mind. How was this possible? Commander, we are receiving distress calls from the fleet, Vorsk said, his voice strained. The Thunderous Blade has lost all power. The Star's Fury is reporting catastrophic hull breaches. The Eternal... He stopped, his scales turning pale. The Eternal Victory just exploded. Counselor Marvek stumbled across the shaking bridge, clutching a railing for support. This is madness. How can primitives be defeating us? We have superior technology. We have the blessing of the Council. Technology means nothing if your tactics are predictable, Thal muttered. He finally understood what had happened. The Galactic Council had not fought a real war in thousands of years. Their military doctrine was designed for enforcement operations against terrified, inexperienced species. But humanity was different. Humans had spent their entire history perfecting the art of killing each other. They knew things about warfare that the Council had forgotten or never learned. Admiral Jiwan watched the battle unfold from her command center. The human fleet was performing better than even her most optimistic projections. The Krallian ships were powerful, but they were slow to adapt. They kept using the same formations, the same tactics, expecting different results. Admiral, we are receiving a transmission from the Krallian flagship, her communications officer reported. Put it through. Commander Thal's face appeared on the screen. His scales were dark with stress and his 4 eyes showed something Jiwan recognized. The look of a commander who had just realized he had lost. Admiral Jiwan, Thal said formally, I am authorized to negotiate a ceasefire. You are authorized to surrender, Jiwan corrected. Those are different things. Thal's jaw tightened, but he nodded. Yes, I am requesting terms for surrender. All Krallian vessels will power down their weapons immediately. Your shields will remain active for your own protection. You will assemble in the designated coordinates we transmit to you. Any ship that attempts to flee or reactivate weapons will be destroyed. Is this understood? It is understood. Thal looked off screen for a moment, then back at Jiwan. I have commanded military operations for 40 years. I have fought in 16 enforcement actions. I did not expect this. That was your mistake, Jiwan said simply. You expected us to fight like everyone else. We don't. Within 30 minutes, the surviving Krallian ships had assembled in the designated area. Human vessels surrounded them, weapons still active, watching for any sign of treachery. The great enforcement fleet that had left Council space with such confidence now sat broken and defeated in Earth's orbit. Commander Taewan reported from the lunar base. All railgun positions secure, Admiral. We have firing solutions on all Krallian vessels should they attempt anything. Magazines are at 65% capacity. Hold position, G1 ordered. Captain Minji, status on our fleet? 11 ships destroyed, Admiral. 4 more heavily damaged but repairable. Total casualties are 341 personnel. We are coordinating search and rescue operations for any survivors in the debris field. 341. It hurt to hear that number. Those were people who had volunteered to defend Earth, knowing the risks. People who believed that saying no to tyranny was worth dying for. G1 would make sure their sacrifice meant something. Prepare medical teams to receive wounded from both sides, G1 ordered. Under human conventions of warfare, we treat all casualties equally. This order surprised many of her officers, but they obeyed. Within hours, human medical ships were moving between the disabled Krallian vessels, evacuating injured aliens and transporting them to field hospitals. The Krallians were shocked by this treatment. In Council enforcement operations, defeated species were not shown such mercy. Commander Thal was brought aboard the orbital command station under guard. He expected to be thrown into a cell, perhaps tortured for information. Instead, he was escorted to a conference room where Admiral G1 waited with several human officers. Sit, G1 said, gesturing to a chair designed to accommodate his larger frame. Thal sat cautiously. What happens now? Now you listen, G1 said. Your fleet will remain under guard until repairs can be made to your damaged vessels. We will not take your ships as prizes of war. We will not execute prisoners. We will not demand ransom. Under human conventions, you are prisoners of war, and you will be treated accordingly. That means medical care, adequate food and water, and respectful treatment. I do not understand, Thal admitted. You defeated us. Why show mercy? Because this war was never about revenge or conquest, G1 explained. This was about defending our sovereignty. You came to our system to force us into servitude. We responded with force. But we are not monsters. We do not abuse defeated enemies. She stood and walked to the window overlooking Earth. Commander Thal, you are going to return to the Galactic Council. You are going to tell them exactly what happened here. You are going to explain how a species they considered primitive defeated what was supposed to be an overwhelming military force. They will not believe me, Thal said quietly. Then we will send them the sensor logs, G1 replied. We recorded everything. Every ship destroyed, every tactic used, every moment of the battle. We want the Council to understand what happened here. She turned back to face him. Humanity did not want this fight. We would have preferred peaceful relations with the Council, but we will not accept servitude as the price of peace. We will not pay tribute. We will not surrender our freedom, and we will defeat any force sent to take it from us. Thal looked at the human admiral with newfound respect and fear. What message should I deliver to the Council? G1 pulled up a holographic display and activated a prepared recording. This is the message you will carry back. The recording showed Admiral G1 speaking directly to the camera. To the Galactic Council, humanity's answer remains no. We will not pay tribute. We will not accept forced servitude. Any additional enforcement fleets sent to our system will be met with the same response. However, we remain willing to establish peaceful relations with the Council on equal terms. We seek cooperation, not domination. Trade, not tribute. Partnership, not servitude. The choice is yours. Thal watched the recording and realized that everything had changed. The Council's entire system was based on the assumption that military superiority could enforce compliance. But Earth had just proven that assumption wrong. If other species learned that resistance was possible, if they discovered that the Council's military was not invincible, the entire tribute system could collapse. You are starting a revolution, Thal said. No, G1 corrected. We are simply refusing to be slaves. If that inspires others to do the same, that is their choice. Over the following days, the surviving Krallian fleet was prepared for departure. Human engineers helped repair critical systems. Medical teams continued treating wounded. And Commander Thal compiled his report, knowing that every word would be scrutinized by the Council. As the Krallian fleet finally left Earth's system, limping back toward Council space, Thal stood on his bridge and looked back at the blue world that had defeated him. He thought about all the other species who had meekly accepted tribute, who had believed they had no choice. He wondered what they would think when they learned what humanity had done. The answer to that question would reshape the galaxy. The Galactic Council chamber had never been so crowded. Every representative was present, and many had brought additional advisors. The usual quiet dignity of the hall had given way to chaos. Delegates shouted at each other across the chamber. Ancient alliances fractured. New ones formed in whispered conversations. And at the center of it all stood Commander Thal, his scales marked with scars from the battle at Earth. Order! High Arbiter Velmoth roared, but his authority had weakened. For the first time in Council history, an enforcement fleet had been defeated. The foundation of galactic civilization was cracking. Thal stood at the speaking platform and delivered his report. He held nothing back. The defeat was total and humiliating. Of 200 ships, only 97 had returned. The human fleet had used tactics the Council had never encountered. They had turned warfare into something brutal and efficient, and they had made it clear they would fight again if necessary. When Thal finished, silence filled the chamber. Then a representative from the Viralian hive spoke. "This is unacceptable. We must send a larger fleet, 10 times larger. We will crush them." But an elder from the Felian consensus disagreed. And if they defeat that fleet as well? How many ships must we lose? How many warriors must die to force one species into compliance? "As many as it takes," a Krallian delegate shouted. "We cannot allow this defiance to stand." Ambassador Hyun had been sitting quietly in the human section, watching the chaos. Now he stood and requested permission to speak. Velmoth, his pride wounded and his patience thin, almost refused. But curiosity won. "Speak, human. What do you have to say for your species' actions?" Hyun walked to the platform. Beside him came Colonel Daehyun, still wearing his military uniform from Earth, and Dr. Sujin, a historian who had spent months studying council records. They carried data tablets filled with research. "High Arbiter, members of the council," Hyun began. "My species did not want war. We wanted only to maintain our sovereignty. But our victory has revealed something important, something that I believe needs to be discussed." "And what is that?" Velmoth asked coldly. Dr. Sujin stepped forward. "The tribute system is fundamentally unjust. During our brief time in the council, I was granted access to historical archives. I have analyzed 3,000 years of tribute collection. The data shows that the founding species of this council have extracted enormous wealth from younger civilizations while contributing almost nothing in return." Angry shouts erupted, but Sujin continued. "The tribute system was never about maintaining galactic order. It was about exploitation. The founding members created a system that kept them wealthy and powerful while keeping newer species in permanent servitude." A delegate from the Threnny collective tried to object. "We paid tribute when we joined. It is tradition." "Tradition does not make something right," Hyun said quietly. "Many terrible things have been traditions. My own planet had traditions of slavery, of oppression, of exploitation. We learned to recognize these systems for what they were. Mechanisms of control disguised as necessary order." Velmoth's 4 eyes narrowed. "You come here having defeated our fleet and now you lecture us on morality?" "No," Hyun said. "I come here to offer you truth, and to offer you an alternative." Over the next hour, Hyun, Daehyun, and Sujin presented their proposal. The tribute system would be abolished. In its place would come a voluntary cooperation agreement. Species would contribute resources based on their capability and their consent, not on demands from above. Military protection would be mutual, not conditional on payment. Trade would be free and fair, not controlled by the founding species. The chamber erupted in debate. Some species immediately rejected the proposal. Others, particularly the younger members who had resented the tribute system for generations, listened carefully. A few senior delegates who had secretly questioned the system for years found themselves nodding in agreement. A representative from the Kelthian Republic, a mid-level power that had joined the council 500 years ago, stood. "Ambassador Hyun speaks difficult truths. My species has paid tribute for centuries. We were told it was necessary for galactic peace. But what peace have we bought? The same species who collect our tribute use it to maintain their dominance over us. Perhaps the humans are right. Perhaps it is time for change." "Change?" Velmoth said the word like it tasted bitter. You would destroy thousands of years of tradition based on the words of a species that has been in space for barely 2 centuries? No, said another voice. It was an elder from the Nissian Confederation, one of the oldest species in the Council. We would consider change based on the fact that the old system has just been proven vulnerable. The humans defeated our enforcement fleet. That means other species could do the same. The tribute system only works if everyone believes it cannot be challenged. The humans have shattered that belief. Private meetings began immediately. Species gathered in small groups, discussing options. Hyun found himself at the center of an unlikely coalition. Junior members who had paid tribute for centuries saw an opportunity for freedom. Mid-level powers who had gained some status but still resented the founding species saw a chance for true equality. Even a few senior members who had grown uncomfortable with the system joined the discussions. They called themselves the Alliance for Sovereign Worlds. Within days, 47 species had signed their names to a document declaring their support for reforming the tribute system. It was not enough to force change through voting, but it was enough to make the Council unstable. High Arbiter Velmoth was a pragmatist beneath his pride. He could see the mathematics clearly. If the Alliance grew stronger, the Council would fracture completely. Some species might even follow humanity's example and refuse tribute by force. The Krallian military could not fight dozens of rebellions simultaneously. He called for a private meeting with Ambassador Hyun. They met in a neutral chamber, just the two of them and their translators. You have put me in an impossible position, Velmoth said without preamble. You put yourself there, Hyun replied. Your tribute system was always built on force and fear. Eventually, someone was going to say no. It just happened to be us. Velmoth's scales shifted color, showing emotions Hyun's database identified as frustration and reluctant acceptance. What you are proposing would fundamentally change galactic civilization. Yes. It would reduce the power and wealth of the founding species, including my own. Yes. It would create a more equal system where all species have true sovereignty. Yes. Velmoth was silent for a long moment. Then he said something Hyun did not expect. My own advisors have been reviewing your historian's data. Her analysis is correct. The tribute system has become exploitative. When it was first created, it served a real purpose, helping younger species integrate into galactic society. But over time, it became something else. Something I am not proud of. Then help us change it, Hyun said. If I support your reforms, I will face opposition from other founding members. Some will see it as betrayal. If you do not support reforms, you will face rebellion from dozens of species. Some will follow our example. The galaxy will descend into chaos and war. Which outcome serves your people better? Velmoth understood the logic. A controlled reform was better than uncontrolled collapse. Very well. I will use my influence to support negotiations, but the process will take time. There are many powerful interests that benefit from the current system. We are patient, Hyun said. But we are also prepared to defend our position, if necessary. The negotiations took months. Heated debates filled the council chamber every day. Some founding species refused to accept any changes. Others recognized that the old system was dying and adaptation was necessary. Slowly, painfully, a new framework emerged. The Mutual Prosperity Compact was signed exactly 1 year after humanity first said no. The tribute system was officially abolished. In its place came voluntary trade agreements, mutual defense pacts, and shared research initiatives. Species contributed based on their capacity and their choice, not on demands from above. The Council itself was reformed, with representation based on population and development level rather than seniority. Not every species joined the new system. A few of the most conservative founding members left the Council entirely, forming their own smaller alliance that still practiced tribute collection among themselves. But most species, including the Krallian Empire, recognized that change was inevitable and chose to be part of shaping it. Ambassador Hyun stood once more at the speaking platform in the council chamber. This time he was not alone. Representatives from 47 other species stood with him as they formally signed the compact. The document was transmitted to every world in the galaxy, marking the beginning of a new era. High Arbiter Velmoth approached Hyun after the ceremony. "I find myself curious about something," the Krallian said. "How did your species find the courage to refuse when no others ever had? What made you different?" Hyun considered the question carefully. "I think it comes from our history. Humans have spent thousands of years being told we cannot do things, cannot govern ourselves, cannot determine our own futures, cannot resist those who claim power over us. We learned to be suspicious of anyone who demands submission in exchange for protection. We learned that the word no is sometimes